Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Mead.
And I'm Christy.
And in this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out,
but actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose. Hello.
Hi, ladies. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Y'all, we're so excited. That other voice you hear is our friend Allison. She has joined us today. Allison is a fellow certified freedom from alcohol coach, someone who we've connected with in the space that we operate in. And she's someone that brings her freedom from alcohol story. We love being able to share, because something that started in my journey when I first started, I thought people that I looked to that had found freedom from alcohol were just rainbow unicorns, and it couldn't be possible for me too. And so our motivation behind bringing you stories of others who have found freedom from alcohol, what did that look like, and how did faith play a role in this too? We love sharing those here in case there's something in there that you can relate to and something that you can use on your journey. So today we have Allison Barber. She was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, a former athlete, a gymnast for a Big Ten school. She now has 3 daughters, 21, 19, and 16, and she's been alcohol-free since June 21st of 2020. So 3.5 years here, small business manager of a family-owned swim shop, and just lovely human. So Allison, welcome. We're so glad you're here. We're excited to hear your story and see where this conversation leads us.
Great. Thanks for having me.
So how did you get here? What did your relationship to alcohol look like before you found freedom from alcohol?
I guess I'll go back as far as high school. And like you said, I was a gymnast and I spent a lot of hours in the gym training, and then obviously as a student. So I didn't party a lot in high school, although I did drink some in high school. And then I earned a 4-year scholarship to a D1 school, and I had to figure out how drinking was going to be woven into doing gymnastics in college. And so it was always this kind of push and pull of how much can I train and how much can I integrate as a normal college student, and how that intersects with my faith beliefs. And so that was a time of just figuring out all of that. And so my sort of history was I was raised in a very rule following, there were high standards for us. And so I felt like I needed to follow whatever sort of rules that were set either for myself or from my parents. And then after I got done with my gymnastics career, it was like I felt this sense of freedom that I got to stop training as hard, stop doing all those things. And I did notice there was an increase in my drinking. Never thought of it as being problematic. I ended up marrying my high school sweetheart. We got back together in our 20s. And for the first time, I really felt this sense of freedom from having to follow all the rules, whether they were biblical rules or self-imposed rules or my family's upbringing rules. And he gave me the permission to let my hair down and not be so tied, because there was always this tension, like I couldn't do things because that was just wrong. So it gave me permission. And for the first time, it was like, oh, I could breathe. I felt like I had the freedom to do what I wanted. And for many years into our marriage and even into having kids, that drinking just tended to increase over time. And I would notice there was this divergence between drinking and the rest of my life. And it was really conflicting, but I couldn't seem to get a handle on it. And I couldn't understand, because I worked so hard at everything else. Why couldn't I be a normal drinker? Why couldn't I just control the amount that I was having? And so it was really frustrating. And I kept having this circular argument with myself where it was, okay, I'm just going to have one or two glasses of wine. And then I would negotiate myself with myself the rest of the night. And by the end, I drank more than I wanted to and wake up and do this whole routine again, this mental kind of argument with myself and frustration. And it would start all over again because all of that sort of guilt and shame and the effects of the hangover would dissipate. And then by evening time, it was like, maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe that tonight I really will just do one glass. Like I'll just do one glass and that'll be it. And it rarely ever was. Yeah. So that's my backstory with it.
Yeah, so it sounds like one of the story, like I can see like that where that, and I love seeing this in clients that I work with too. It's once you start like digging into what their story is, you see where that coupling started with alcohol performing this role or having this job for us. And you talked about like that chance to let loose. So while it didn't maybe start as this thing that you were using to let loose, it after the gymnastics and stepping into that next chapter of your life, it just got coupled together with letting loose that then creates like that story that continues to just guide us on an unconscious way in a lot of ways, keeping us further and further stuck. So I thought that was interesting in what you shared about the let loose. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. At first, it was definitely, I was drinking more as a celebration.
Hmm.
And when looking back, I had some really great times. I think I just, maybe others can relate. It was a situation where it just gets reinforced that you're celebrating and then it kind of locks in this idea that you needed to celebrate because it enhances what you're there celebrating as opposed to the people you're with, the things you're doing. And then it just evolved into a more of a self-medicating, I'm frustrated, I'm feeling stuck. What started off being a celebration turned more into that plus my way of coping with life stress.
I'm always reminded of this too in William Porter's book, and he spoke about it on the pod here too, where he said that this was so eye opening to me because I didn't have words for it when I was stuck in it or even shortly thereafter. But he makes the point so well that, like, at a certain point, the drinking becomes the just relief from the noise that we feel, the cognitive dissonance that we feel around where our drinking has all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but maybe over a slow time, taken up more and more space as we've given it unconsciously more jobs in our life. It was celebratory, it was how I let loose. And then all of a sudden it's taking up, more space in our lives. And then we're trying to do something about it. We're realizing that it's not headed in a good direction, and now we just want relief for that, which is why then by 5 o'clock, we can say in the morning, no, tonight for real, like I'm not drinking, or tonight for real, I'm only going to have a glass or two. And then 5 o'clock rolls around and it's forget it. And it's to get rid of, it's to find the relief from the situation that was created from alcohol in the first place. And I think that's a space where people can get stuck on beating themselves up. And I know the method that you use for finding freedom from alcohol, similar to how we did. How did you turn that around? Like, how did you move out
Mhm.
of that place of blaming yourself where you were stuck and then be able to take some steps forward?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I spent years, literally years, beating myself up and thinking it was just an issue of willpower and I wasn't trying hard enough, or maybe I really didn't want the change. And did I really want this for myself, or did I actually enjoy what I was doing? So, where finally found some new information was just in the science behind all of it. And I didn't realize that this wasn't just an issue. Not only was it not just an issue of willpower, but it truly was science about how the brain wires and just these patterns that had been developed and that my body expected it. And so to disengage from that was much more than, although I think it does require some intentionality and some effort in sitting in this space of discomfort because you're trying to interrupt a behavior and a pattern that had been just for ingrained for years. So I won't say that it was just like easy to turn it around, but the new information about how the brain works and how your body processes it gave me the space and the freedom to set aside that judgment that I'd constantly be beating myself up and saying, "What is wrong with you? Can't you get it together? You've got this amazing life. And what are you doing?" And so it quieted that noise and it gave me new information to work with to know that it wasn't that I was just broken in that part of my life. It was just alcohol doing what it does, and that it actually is addictive. So, with that, I was able to give myself some grace and freedom around just looking at why was it that I was drinking this much? And what did I think that it was adding? And all the while, as my drinking was increasing, your tolerance increases. So I needed more of it to have the same effect. So I needed to learn something different in order to make a change. And that was, and truly like the science behind it.
I love so much that you said, and it's so up in the cognitive dissonance of this of I know I should change, but maybe I don't want that change. And I feel like that piece right there is the reason that for me that drinking brought me further from my faith because I knew
Mhm.
that I should change, but deep down I didn't want to yet. And that knowing that I didn't want to and I knew I was going to keep behaving the same way night after night is what kind of shut off my communication channel with God, right? Because it was just like, I know I'm not supposed to be doing this, but I know I'm not going to change. So what's the point in praying about it deal? And so I love that you said that so much because it really resonated with me, like how I felt like in those beginning stages. But I'm wondering, so we always talk about the stories that kept us stuck, right, on pod and everything, and the different reasons that we drink. What was the first kind of job that you gave alcohol that you were like able to easily turn around? Like for me, I always say the second I learned the science of sleep and I knew that red wine was hijacking my sleep, I wasn't ever going to drink wine to sleep anymore. So what was
Yeah.
your like the first one to go for you?
I think I'm not sure if it was the first one, but the one that comes to mind was I was using it to relieve my stress. When I learned to just observe what it did in the moment, sometimes it never actually did, but when it did, it was in that first maybe half hour that the effects of this just rush of like, I can relax, I can take a deep breath was very temporary. And
Mhm.
then I felt this, okay, I need to pour another one because this one's gone and I need to continue that feeling. And then when I noticed my tension actually increased and my patience was shorter, I said things, whether it was to my husband or my kids, that tension wouldn't have been quite as much, I don't think. So once I saw that it wasn't actually relieving my stress and I stopped drinking for stress relief, I think that's when the biggest change happened for me in that shift.
I love the experiential knowledge that you like highlight with that and that. And by the way, like I did not coach Allison to freedom from alcohol, and yet she describes what I always speak to is that collecting that experiential knowledge that says, is this true? But before you even ask the question, is this really relieving my stress? What you described too. And I think this is so important for anyone out there who is listening, who is at that place where they're like, in the morning, I'm waking up and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And then by the evening, I'm just completely negotiating with myself and throwing the rules out the window. And then I'm back in that cycle again. The thing that's keeping us there is that kind of like judgment. There's something wrong with me. What you just described is turning away from that judgment and getting curious. So learning new information, learning the science, which further more curiosity, allowing you to step into, okay, if stress is something that I'm using this for, is it really true that alcohol relieves my stress? And then we collect like real life data around that. And that is so massive because we can listen all day long to somebody else's telling us that it's not true and the science, and that's helpful. And that's one piece of it. But when we turn to curiosity and step into it, that's where we actually get to rewire those pathways. And I love the way that you describe that as part of your journey.
Yeah, part of what I started off thinking was I get the freedom to choose. I think that's an important piece even in our faith to say God gives us the freedom to choose. But the thing that I used that as an excuse to be able to drink
Yes.
more, and then slowly over time, it became the thing that I needed freedom from. That to me now is so precious because I do still get to choose, and I do still feel like I
Mhm.
have the choice. But now I feel like I have freedom from it so that I can do it's just opened up so many doors and opportunities because truly it made my life shrink. It just really, my world got really small because it was
Yeah.
just rinse, repeat.
Yeah, I so relate to that. I love the freedom of choice in whether or not we get to drink or not, but I also love the freedom of choice that we have in how we want to find that freedom, right? And so there is no one way to find freedom from alcohol. Everybody gets to pick and choose what works for them. And that's something that I feel like I didn't know when I was stuck in the drinking cycle either, right? Like we talked about a recent episode of traditional programming and thinking that there's only one way. But really, not only do we have the freedom to drink, but we have the freedom to find the freedom and go about finding that freedom, right? Like in whatever way works for us, using a label, not using a label, with reading Quitlet, not reading Quitlet, like all of the things. So I love that so much. I'm curious with three teen and in your 20s daughters. So I don't know how you did three, but I'm curious like what has been special, memorable about you going on this freedom from alcohol journey and how they've gotten to watch that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they watched both my then husband and I are drinking, as I would refer to it as the third wheel in our marriage, tear down the fabric of our marriage. But the beauty of it now, I feel like God is redeeming just my story in that they are now my biggest cheerleaders. My oldest one, she tells other people, and here she is in college. She's just very complimentary of seeing how far I've come with my story and she sees the changes that it's led. And I think that it's really important, I think, especially as women, to feel a sense of agency and a sense of responsibility to ourselves to show up as the best version of ourselves. And for many years, I took this victim role because I felt like all the hats I was wearing were supportive roles as a wife, as a mom, as an employee. I work for my mom, actually, who that's been an interesting journey. But in all of these, I felt like I'm helping support my husband in his career or my kids in their academics and their sports or whatever they're into, and my mom and her business. And I think I got lost in the middle of that. And because we are so busy as working moms or as moms, we can tend to lose a sense of ourselves. And I did myself a disservice by not stepping into what choices I had for myself at the time. I felt like I was just trying to keep my head above water. And a lot of times that is the case. So wine can just be that band aid every day to try to just hold it together or get through each day. But as my kids were getting older and I had a little bit more time, I was able to choose a different path and say, what is in my control? What can I do about my marriage? What can I do about my parenting? What can I do as an employee to own my own choices and to take some responsibility in where I got to? And alcohol went along with that. And so since then my girls have seen my perspective now on alcohol and my lifestyle all align so much more. So I feel this like sense of peace and freedom that I can be who I was designed to be because I'm not numbing out and I'm not disconnecting in parts of my day where I would otherwise just check out. And life is still life. It's still hard. I've been through a divorce. I'm struggling with my middle daughter. And yeah, at the end of the day, life is still life, but I get to show up as the best version of myself. And it feels congruent. And it doesn't feel like I have this divergence anymore between the life I want and the life I have. That gap is shrinking, and alcohol had a big part of that.
Responding to the heartfelt request from you, our wonderful, wonderful listeners, for a deeper sense of community, we are so excited to introduce y'all to the But Jesus Drink Wine community.
Get ready to be part of an exclusive experience where you'll join a sisterhood of kindred spirits on a transformative journey of faith, sobriety, and personal growth.
You'll gain access to our private community, a place where deep connections can flourish among women who share your aspirations of strengthening faith in Christ and breaking free from alcohol.
But wait, there's more. We'll host regular connection calls to facilitate fellowship with like-minded gals, no matter where you stand on your alcohol or faith journey. Whether you're seasoned or just curious, you are very warmly welcomed here.
Prepare to be inspired by guest expert sessions and engaging Q&As that explore the essential topics for your sobriety, faith, and holistic wellness journey.
Don't miss out on securing your spot. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
We can't wait to see your beautiful face in the But Jesus Drank Wine community.
Yeah. When I was stuck, it was the idea that all the things that were happening to me, that were coming at me, that were outside of my control, I always have Dory from Finding Nemo in my head that just keeps swimming as I'm playing defense to the things that are coming at me, not realizing that also, like you talk about that responsibility piece. And this is something that we talk a lot about here too. It's not our fault that we got stuck in this over drinking cycle with alcohol because it's an addictive substance. You give an addictive substance a tiny opening in your life, it will at some point start to take up more and more room. And taking the responsibility, like owning where we have fallen into, that's part of the natural path of realizing we do have choice and we do have freedom to say, I don't want to live like this anymore. So the responsibility part is so powerful. But also it's the agency that you talk about that I love. It's like waking up to your life and going, oh, wait, I did get here and I did contribute to how I got here. It's not all my fault. I do have responsibility. And also, like, how do I want the next however many, like the rest of my life to go? Oh, I get to choose how I step into my future versus playing from that place of defense. And so from your perspective, like what has been the greatest gift, if you will, of being free from alcohol
Mhm.
and being able to look at your next chapters?
Growing up as a gymnast and as a Christian, I was so quick to draw conclusions about myself. And so, what
Mhm.
I've learned through this process is if I can notice that and if I can delay that judgment and
Mhm.
ask, what's in this for me? Where can I choose differently next time? Or what's the lesson in this? It allows for learning. But the less space we have there and the quicker I am to judge myself, it's just like I've cut off the space to see what's in it, to be able to evolve more, learn more, and grow more.
Yeah, I love that so much. I was just actually coaching a group right before we hopped on here today, and we were talking about just the idea of being able to shift our emotion through our thoughts, right? And just like we are able to decide whether or not we're going to listen to the wine, which you're not, like we have the choice, going back to choice, of whether or not we're going to listen to our inner critic, right? And recognizing that as a voice that can be separate from us and that we don't necessarily have to believe everything that she says because I don't know about you gals, but like before I went on this journey of freedom from alcohol and then all this good self work that we get to do, I spoke to myself in a way that I would never ever in a million years speak like that to a girlfriend or to Ella or anybody that I loved. And yet here I am. I'm supposed to be a daughter of Christ and I'm supposed to be his creation and I'm literally constantly tearing myself down on weight and looks and all of the things, right? And so just goes back to the choice of we get to choose whether or not we're going to listen to that really negative self-talk.
It's all just a process. And it is in the, I think that's why it's so important to recognize even these small wins because all along the way, I was looking for freedom from alcohol as though I was going to hit this finish line. And what I learned was it was all these small little changes along the way, these little drops in the bucket. It meant I normally would drink at 5. Maybe I wasn't going to start until 6 and just interrupting small patterns and realizing those are important in making ultimate changes.
Those little ops that I say, like
the little ops that turn to the pops, the proofs of progress that we have, because you're exactly right. It's hard to see what those little things are. And when we have this massive thing that's taking up so much space and it's so big and we're like, I want to be able to like have this all settled with like how to fix this or how to move away from this, how to find the freedom and just tell. And we, how many times do we have clients that come to us and they're like, okay, I'm here and tell me exactly what to do and I'll do it. And it's, wait,
Mm.
it's not that simple. It's simple, but it's not that easy because we're going to start with these little, we always talk about our tiny new actions here on the pod. Let's start with one tiny new action. So to your point, if it's, I was drinking regularly at 5 o'clock, that's when I'm going to delay that an hour now. And I'm going to, it's a non-negotiable. No matter what I do, I can't open that bottle of wine until 6 o'clock tonight. And in that hour, when I'm sitting there thinking about it, I'm just gonna notice how I feel. I'm gonna notice what's different. I'm gonna start just paying attention to that. And then at 6 o'clock, if I choose to drink from, then at least I'm doing it from a place of choice. So to continue our theme of choice, which is one of my most favorite words in the whole world, it disrupts that automatic cycle that we get into where it's I'm drinking and I don't even want to be drinking right now. How many times, I don't know if you experienced that, Allison, but like how many times did you find yourself, I didn't even really want to drink tonight. And here I am drinking because that's just what I do.
Yeah. I can remember vividly going to the refrigerator and opening the doors and shaking my hands in front of it like, why am I choosing you? Why am I doing this again? Like, I don't want you. And then I would reach for it and open it up and pour myself a big old glass
Yeah.
and continue
Yeah.
on. Yeah. So I do
Yeah.
think that, yeah, those small behavior changes at the same time, really looking at what beliefs do I really think this is
Hmm.
adding something positive to my life? Because we can work on the behavior, but I think at the same time, we've got to work on what's really going on underneath it and what our culture tells us. So it's work, but it's work well worth it. And to gain my freedom back, I feel like God has got me on this journey that alcohol is not going to diminish. There are plenty of other things to be working on, but alcohol is not going to be standing in the way for now.
I'm curious if there were any, what were some of your fears in making the change or pursuing the science and the curiosity and that led to you finding freedom?
Yeah, I definitely held a strong belief that if people didn't drink, that they were boring, that they were too tight, that they didn't know how to have fun. And I thought that is definitely not me. So it was always my intention to try to control my drinking and just have it be less in the forefront of my life. And so I really think that it wasn't until I started putting it into practice and realizing that those beliefs couldn't be further from the truth. But I didn't know what I didn't know. I
Yeah.
Because I'd been drinking for so long to some degree from high school into college and the rest of my life, I didn't know. So my fear was I'm not going to fit in. I'm not going to have as much fun socially. Yeah, all of those things that life couldn't be as fun without it. The beauty of getting curious about it is that you can try that without judgment and just being open. And the more open I was to it, the more receptive I was to actually seeing if that could be true in my life. But I do think it requires a sense of openness to that because our culture will tell us that a party without alcohol is no fun. Yeah, that was my fear of being boring and not having fun without it.
What would you say to the woman who is standing or stood, let's say, stood last night at the refrigerator shaking her hands? What would you say to her, the woman that's really stuck right now?
I would say you're okay and it's okay, regardless of whether you get it out of the fridge or not. There's a sense of feeling okay as a created being because I felt very stuck and very broken, and that there is hope. And there are lots of ways to find freedom from that. You don't have to stay stuck forever.
I love that. That's so good. Is there a tiny new action that you would leave our listeners with? Something small that they can
Uh,
do?
Becoming an observer of your life,
Love that.
especially as busy as our culture is, and we pride ourselves on staying busy. I think it's one way that is very empowering. Just reminding yourself when you notice that you're in your life, as opposed to trying to step outside your world and look in and just be an observer, see what's going on for yourself. I think that's really empowering. And that gives us the ability to offer more choices for
Absolutely.
ourselves.
That's so good. Yeah, I always describe it as like this, like you got to zoom way out, because when the lens is really tight around where you are and you're in it, you can't see the forest for the trees, if you will. I think that's the saying. Is that the saying? Forest for the trees?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
is.
Like that is. And then, yeah, once you can zoom out, you can start collecting that data, like observing where in your life that alcohol is adding to your life. Is it adding to your life? Are there any places where is it taking away? And just that, it's just, I remember feeling just so much relief when, I mean, I think what I think I would describe it as hope. It's that little bit of hope when you can zoom out and become that observer. There is this opportunity for hope that I'm not always going to be stuck in this forever.
Mm.
And I love how your story highlights that. Will you please share with our readers where to find you? You are a certified coach and you've got clients, you're helping them find freedom from alcohol. Tell our listeners where they can find you, please.
Yeah, my website is called theinsideoutfreedom.com. Also at AllisonBarberCoach.com. So that goes to my website. And then I'm on Facebook, Inside Out Freedom, and on Instagram as well. So I'd love to connect with anybody. I feel like I'm in a place now that it just feels good to be able to offer that back and that hope to somebody who is where I was not that long ago.
I love that name, Inside Out Freedom. Christy, we just riffed on that the other day, didn't we? Was it on a pod or was it separate? But the Inside Out idea. Anyway, I just love the name of your. Christy's, I have no idea what we're talking about. Me, that was so like yesterday, and it was a long time ago.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Allison.
Allison.
We
It was
really
great to talk
appreciate
with
you.
you both. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Of course. All right, ladies, we will see you next Monday. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to peep the new deets for the community in the show notes. We'll see you next Monday. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. You can find all of our episodes at butjesusdrinkwine.com, and be sure to follow us over on Instagram, Love Life Sober, and I'm Not Sober, I'm Free.
To learn more about what we do, you can visit our websites, meethollandshirley.com and lovelifesober.com.
Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with a friend or two.
And don't forget to subscribe to our pod so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode. And if you love what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify.
This helps more women who are feeling stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle find hope and encouragement.
Thanks, ladies. We so appreciate you, and we'll see you next Monday.